to Kamila Singh show. As we are placed on this earth, we like to acknowledge the unceded territory of Squamish Nation, Silvertooth, and
Kwantlen, we can say.
Kwantlen
Nation.
Kwantlen, I think, sorry. I write every time, but I just forget. So that we are blessed to be on here. The first people of this land has let us share their land with us, immigrants who have come to this country. Having said that, now we should get into a political panel. We haven't talked about it for a few weeks because the election was happening and everybody was too busy. But now municipal election is over, and we have the panelists in our studios. Annie Ohana, she is a community organizer, activist, school teacher at LA Madison, and next to her is Eileen Mohan. She is the mother of Chris Mohan, whom you must have seen in the news many, many times and for many years ago. And she's here also, that she's kind of happy whatever happened on Friday with gun control law that Prime Minister was in here. So we'll be talking about all those things. But first thing first, welcome to both of you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So I was going to start with the election, the municipal election. And I knew somehow it was that Surrey and Vancouver will make, and Victoria too, three big cities, and there will be some changes coming. So were you surprised to see how the election turned out in all the three major cities in BC?
I was. I was not surprised. I was anticipating the changes because, especially in Vancouver, the city of Vancouver, they were going to put so many restrictions on the movements of the public at large. Who can come into the city of Vancouver and who can't go into the city of Vancouver, and the parking situation, and also the layout of the Stanley Park, and which is a jewel for BC. And it was, for me, I normally like to go for a run, and going to Stanley Park and parking and trying to go maneuver through all that was creating a little bit of a safety, a hassle for me. So I kind of refrained from taking my car there, and I stopped using the park because I thought, something needed to be done. But I'm happy that the new mayor is coming in. He's going to make a special bike lane for the bikers, and the road will be given up for the people to use naturally as it was in the beginning. And the business in Vancouver along the sides in Stanley Park will benefit from the traffic flow also. And in Surrey, if I've just complete that, in Surrey, I think Doug had to go. And I know Doug had to go because we're a democratic country. And the way he led the city and the meetings was almost like it's my way or the highway. And he had to go. And so I'm happy to see the new mayor. And I'm looking forward to what will come about.
Yeah, I mean, we saw several acclaimed mayors, but overall across BC, a vast change. And I think, and you brought up some, good points there. There's so many issues that people were having municipally. So in Surrey, whether that's policing, right, which I think at the end of the day seemed to be a very large issue. Yes. There are a lot of other issues that needed to be discussed. I think land use space as well, the future growth of Surrey, so many different things, right? At the school board level, the reality of, while there was no change in Surrey, nonetheless, some very important issues, like we're seeing in the United States, how the removal of anti-racism curriculum, the removal of curriculum that allows, parents and students and community to really come together to talk about issues of justice. So there was a lot of fear in the election on the trustee front across BC for any number of reasons. So am I surprised? No, absolutely not. Again, I do agree with you. I think Doug McCallum ran the show very heavy-handedly, at times very autocratically. So the fact that we have a mixed slate kind of people that got in, and Brenda Locke being, a longtime fighter against Doug McCallum here. But I have to say, my big point is this: I'm really not happy with the turnout. At the end of the day, across BC,
I think it was 34%?
It's something like that, yeah. And so across BC, you have like around 30-ish, percent, and that's not a good sign. If we don't have our voices heard, then other people just kind of claim that space and can act in the way that McCallum and others were acting. So I am concerned about that. I do feel that voting is very important, no matter how you vote.
Yeah.
But you need to get out there and vote. So I really felt with so many important issues before us that people might have more impetus to go out and vote. So perhaps we need a change. I don't know. I don't know what that looks like, a ward system, because there's so many people running in Surrey. But at the same time, I wasn't so happy about that because it doesn't really give a good mandate. And I think too many people are left unheard from many communities that for whatever reason didn't find the time to go out and vote.
What surprised me the most is that when with the history of Doug McCallum, he still got about 32,000 votes.
Yes.
About less than 1,000 votes, less than the present mayor. What is going through the people's mind? I mean, he was very close to even getting in.
Yeah.
So that is what surprises me. Yeah. People they want RCMP, they don't want city police. But at the same time, you are going and voting for the man who has criminal records, not criminal records right now.
He's up for
2
trial.
weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks he's going to be going to the court and all those things. Like it's either my way or the highway. It's one-man show. But there are two of their councillors, Surrey Connect?
Surrey Connect and Surrey First. And then Mandeep Nagra from Safe
So there are two of
Safe Surrey Coalition.
councillors that got in.
Yeah.
But congratulations to Brenda Locke. She fought hard, but I think I wanted to see a different result than that. Yeah. Secondly, I want to touch upon Vancouver. Were there any surprises? I was hoping for the surprise and a landslide for Ken Sims for Council, School and Parks Board, right? But he doesn't have no experience. He has never been elected.
Yes.
He doesn't have experience. What will be his challenges running a big city like Vancouver with about 700,000 people?
I think he's got the real guts in his heart to do what he wanted to do. And remember, this is not the first time he's running.
Yeah, he ran
Okay,
last time.
he ran last time. So he's got, even though he wasn't in the council, he has experience, he has attributes that he wants to bring about. And, I think he is going to be a very compassionate leader, because he's been wanting the mayor's job for a very long time. And I think I'm more related to Vancouver because I work downtown than in Surrey, because I find Vancouver is my second home, right? And so I think he's, and especially in Chinatown, and Chinatown needed that representation, and in policing also. But I think his challenge will be West Pender. And West Pender and West Hastings.
Oh, East Hastings.
And it will and all the homelessness there. That will be the most challenging aspect of his new role. And how do we upgrade that section of the downtown community? And how do we bring housing and drug use and reconcile everything into one package so that we don't have so many tents set up on the roadway and violence on the roads and having people, sometimes I don't drive that way anymore because I feel very frightened to drive past that way, especially going from Surrey into downtown. I take a longer route and I feel more secure, but I think that section needs to be secured, and I'm hoping that he will come up with a lot of headways for the people living there, so that they feel like they're not being driven out,
Yes.
but at the same time given the respect that they think they have to attain, and find a solution so we all can live together as one society.
I don't disagree with you at all. I think that there might be I'll explain in my thoughts. It's wonderful to see a mayor that is not, once again, white, Scottish,
Yes.
because there's this weird pattern in Vancouver that we have. And it is wonderful that in the long storied history of Asian contributions to this land, even in the help of Indigenous peoples and vice versa, where the Musqueam actually allowed Chinese to live with them when there was a Chinese head tax and all the horrible repression and oppression of all kinds of Asian communities, but I'm speaking primarily to his background. So that's wonderful to see. I think that's always a good move forward. I think
first time in the history.
first time in the history, and that is absolutely
Asian
massive.
and heritage.
Yeah, and hopefully much more to come, right? And that's really the goal that we all have. I think what's interesting is, so I do a lot of work in like frontline worker. My background's in criminology, political science, and like harm reduction and things of that nature. I hope we can tone down the rhetoric around the idea that, and this is not what you're saying, but I've heard it from others, that like homelessness or the homeless people are somehow the problem. I think, as you said, these are all red flags of a much deeper problem. We have a reality where the decentralization of mental health services led to what we see today, ongoing, and why it's so hard to fix, why multiple mayors from all directions, including the NPA, like all around, have not been able to deal with this. And these solutions have so much more to do with federal law, provincial law, and municipal. So I hope I'm sure we'll have a good team around him to help deal with those issues. But I can speak for quite a few police officers that work in that area and other places where policing itself won't be the solution there. And I will say it out loud that I do think, as a school teacher, a return of the VPD to schools it raises some concern, very simply, because in our collective agreement, in the staffing of our schools, we lack counselors. We lack mental health services. We lack the funding to actually provide our students with safe spaces. And we see that because police are also on the line of duty, they can't actually give time to the school, along with the trauma that I teach in a BIPOC area, a lot of trauma that's faced with policing and tracking of BIPOC youth. So I do think there needs to be bigger discussions around this. So that we really see the full picture. Of course, I wish them all the best, and these issues need to be resolved so that housing is provided and a better, more secure understanding that health and safety have everything to do with mental health, income security, housing security, food security, that it's not just about the tents on the street. So again, I agree with you. Just some people, they were alarmist. And I'm like, this has been an issue for many decades now. And we need to be more critical of every level of government for failing to provide the safety for all people in many communities, including Surrey.
What I will say that I think all that thing you can work on, but we need to have a housing first.
Yes.
You have to have a housing. These people can receive treatment with mental health, food, and everything else, but you need to have a roof. That's a given. And when you don't have an address and living in the tents, then it becomes such a big issue that nobody wants to go there and touch it.
And the 7,000 SRO units we have down there
And
are
is
absolutely
rats and all
decrepit.
those.
And I hope people never have to walk into those areas or need that space. These are human rights violations. We have slumlords that are exploiting our system and exploiting those people. And I don't think it's fair to tell someone live with rats and cockroaches and literally floors falling through, like ceilings falling. So it takes time to build things. I understand that. But just realize that when people are refusing to go into that housing, there's a very real reason. And you would never want your kids or your family to live in such conditions. When something goes wrong in our neighborhoods and we ask the city to repair it, They do. Right? The laws are very clear. The bylaws are very clear. For some reason, in Vancouver and in parts of Surrey, what we've seen is complete ignorance and disregard by bylaw officials and even criminal code to actually deal with this housing properly, so that housing is secure enough to actually be used. So long-term goal, obviously, we'll see if David Eby and whatever everybody else, like what they can find in terms of fixes for housing.
I was also going to say, okay, changing the subject then, what do you think of whatever happened? David Eby is he will be our
Presumptive
prime minister,
premier,
not a prime minister, but
Premier.
And so we had a challenger.
Yeah.
At the end of it, or towards the end, she got disqualified because they are saying that she has signed up membership or Dogwood community, which is a very environmentalist.
Yes.
And that scared him, or somehow she got disqualified.
Yeah.
Do you think he's seen a huge challenge, and that's why they had to do everything to get her out of the caucus? Or
certainly some people think that, right? Having run for office, I do understand a little bit the third party rules and how that works. So there was a question around Dogwood and this organization and whether they had signed up people kind of on their behalf, which you're not supposed to do. And there's a question about whether the rules were applied after the fact. So I do think overall, the fact that they didn't allow her to make her case is problematic. It's not democratic to me. I do feel she should have had the right to respond to the allegations in a much more fuller sense, as any investigation should. So I do feel there needs to be an investigation into all leadership races, whether that's Liberal, NDP, Green, whatever, that these things need to be discussed in a fuller way, because I think there's a lot that we don't know here. Was she a challenge? Absolutely. But I relished it. I think any leadership race should have a challenge. Look at the UK, so completely undemocratic what they're doing. So I think here there was a chance to have a newcomer from the, grassroots, right? That I think would, and
a woman of color,
and honestly,
very
I think
intelligent, bright woman.
David Eby was probably going to get it anyways, right? We can't be naive about these things, but a woman of color stepping up from an environmental lens, certainly what we need. So I think it's certainly the perception is that she was too big of a problem. Might there be issues around how she got people in? For sure, but I can tell you election rules can be tough. And so, you do all you do, your intent is there, and another organization kind of muddies the water. And Dogwood says they didn't do anything wrong. I don't know, right? Certainly we need to investigate that further. We should not have third-party individuals and, kind of corporations, unions, anybody for that matter, kind of adding money to the game, which is what we don't want, or, signing people up and paying them to sign up. Like, we certainly don't want that. But without letting her have her due recourse and due process to explain what was going on, I feel her disqualification did not have merit.
Do you have anything to add to that?
Well, what I'm going to say is that don't forget that Eby is a lawyer. And he will always act within the law aspects of whatever he talks and walks and whatever he takes on. And this aspect of the challenger and everything, David Eby would have looked into it with a microscopic eye. And he would have not walked this walk if he thought that he was, or the party was doing something wrong. And he has led a very clean slate life. And I know Mr. Eby. I followed him. He was, when Christopher was killed, he spoke on behalf of the gangsters at some point in time, and I've followed him, and since then I have known him to be a very man of upstanding nature and a very law abiding. And Mr. Eby will never walk into something that he thinks that has muddied the waters. So they can do an investigation, they can go anywhere they like. But the sheet will come out as clean as white and
Yeah.
pure.
And to be
Yeah.
clear, it's the BC executive, right?
Yes,
It's 40
yeah.
individuals.
Yeah.
I'm not besmirching David
Yeah,
Eby's name,
David
but
Yeah.
just the larger structure
But
of
the
what's going on.
structure,
Yeah.
you must remember, even you have the structure, EB is the apple in the structure. And without EB not looking microscopically into the problem, they will not have a solution.
Fair enough.
And he already has it at the back of his mind. He's a man of not too many words, but when he speaks and he means what he speaks. So I mean, I'm I know him. That's why I know him personally, not personally, but professionally, and that's why I can say with concrete statement that he walks within the law, and he you can investigate whatever aspect you want to investigate. She can do her investigation, and I think she has kept quiet because I think she knows what has happened within herself, and I don't know her. I don't know how she ran her campaign, and I'm a woman, and all power to a woman, but I'm also a law-abiding woman. And I believe in sticking, like, I mean, for Christopher, I've stuck within my bounds. I've stuck within the law. I've had a lot of people criticize me. A lot of people, said whatever they wanted to say. I know how to walk, and I think EB reflects the person he is. And I want to reflect the person I am, because we have to know our boundaries.
One thing I'll say, I really like her as a woman of color, very well spoken, highly
Of course,
educated,
yes.
and all that. And maybe because her name is out, maybe NDP will not give her a chance, because she becomes a threat to NDP. Liberals are not there to give her that she can run under Liberal. If I was NG, I will start another party. Let be a third party in here. That's a competition. It's not like Liberals and NDP only. They used to have social credits and other party. If I was that woman, I would be going that route.
All the power to her.
All
then.
the power to her.
Yeah.
Because she will be somebody someday.
But she's not leaving the NDP, right? So I would say, if not that, run again.
Run again.
Right? Run
Yeah.
again, get a seat,
Yeah.
and then...
And
go
probably
from the
do it in a different manner. Hire a lawyer, and walk within the laws, means of the laws, and do what you have to do to not be criticized or be investigated in whatever you want to do.
Okay,
Right?
I'm looking at the clock as well. Interesting topic. But then again, I want to point out your thing that Prime Minister was here on Friday
Okay.
and in SETI, and he made the announcement about gun control. And I know you have been an advocate of that because you lost your son to that, 16 years?
16 years.
16 years ago.
Will be 16
And
years.
I think you have been present there. What is your take with it? Do you think it's going to do anything? Do you think people will be more... the guns you and me both know is half the time is smuggled from the border to bring it, and every kid is carrying a gun here now. So do you think that will make a huge difference with shootings and drugs and gangs and all that if we have a control over it?
Well, we wanted to start with something that, when you do an investigation, or whether you put yourself forward, you first have to clean your house first.
Mm-hmm.
And clean your background and look into things that we can update and to push an agenda further. This was the first thing that we did, was to ban or to freeze the sale of handguns. And if you look at the aspects around our own country, there is a populace out there that handguns are very popular with the people. And as law-abiding citizens, I don't think we need to sell handguns in Canada. That's my personal view. I think the more guns out of homes and out of the system in Canada will be better. And we've been looking at this as to how do we progress forward and become a country that in the future that we will get rid of guns. And so that was the first thing, was to freeze the sale of handguns, so that from tomorrow onwards, what the Trudeau government is doing, and the safety and public safety minister, his portfolio will be doing, is to then enhance the land, air, and sea borders, so that we will now put more resources into the smuggling of guns into our country, and how do we stop that smuggle, and to refrain from that. Because if you look, Christopher was killed by an illegal gun, not a registered gun. And over here, I know a lot of gun owners, registered gun owners, are not happy that we are putting a stop to the sale of handguns. But to secure our future generation, I think this will be the best aspect to start now, is to bring safety about for our children, our grandchildren, and to believe that Canada is a law-abiding country.
I can say very quickly, I want to thank you for all your efforts over the years, and many others that really, I know you face some backlash from multiple groups. I'll say this: I remember talking to a police officer who said, "If I believe too much in my gun, then I failed."
Yes.
And I really believe that. So for registered gun owners out there that are feeling like somehow they're getting attacked, but safety should not rely on whether or not you are strapped. Safety should be about that you can trust your community, your neighbors, your children, the adults in your life. That's what brings around safety. So I do think that by removing and looking really at those illegal purchases, and still saying, you know what, there is a line here, and so let's put that line in, and then continue the conversation. I feel sad when someone says they need a gun to feel safe. It means we have failed.
Yeah. With that, I'm looking at the clock. We are wrapping up Kamila Singh Show, and keep watching Kamila Singh Show. And if there are any topics that you like to talk about, or this panelist to come and talk about it, or you want to bring it up, you are most welcome. Thank you.